Hello guys and welcome back to the Crystal Palace TV live stream. Now I am aware I've had a few technical difficulties where the stream keeps cutting out, but obviously it's back now. I think it should be working, so hopefully I can go on now and obviously, talk about our brand new signing, the Swedish midfielder Erdal Rakip. So do comment below any views what you think of the signing, whether you think he'd be a success in the Premier League, and whether you do think, even though it's just a short-term loan till the end of the season, whether you do think he'd be a success in the Premier League, and whether actually with the injuries to Johan Kabay and all other players, so like Loftus-Cheek as well. So the two main players, Loftus-Cheek and Kabay, because we've got injuries to them, whether you do think him coming in, just giving us a bit of midfield cover, will actually help us, go forth in the next few weeks, obviously with the injuries we do have. But do comment below what your views are of him, and also do comment below whether you can hear the audio. Hopefully it should be working, so do comment below if you can hear me, along with your views of the signing itself. Now in terms of the signing, I've already discussed it a little bit already, but he's a Swedish international. Obviously he's 21 years old, so he plays for the under-21 Swedish team. And obviously Erdal Rakip, obviously, is his name, and he's joined from Benfica till the end of the season on a loan. Now obviously his contract ended a few weeks ago with Malmo, however you want to say it, Malmo. It ended with them, I think it was November, so he hasn't had a club since then. But Benfica have picked him up on a free transfer and loaded him straight to Palace. And obviously he's Roy Hodgson's first signing, obviously, because Roy Hodgson wasn't here in the summer, so he didn't make the summer signing. So it's Roy Hodgson's first signing, and obviously it will see Rakip make a temporary move to South London. And when you consider, in the past with Roy Hodgson working in the Swedish league, actually, even though he hasn't worked there in about 20 years, I think it is, maybe he still has contacts there, and obviously found out that actually Rakip is quite a talent. And actually, based on videos I've seen online, yes, he may not be playing in the highest league, but actually he looks like he's got quite a lot of skill. But in terms of him himself, he's a product of Marlowe's academy. He obviously joined the club age 5 and made his debut for his hometown team in 2013. He played a total of 120 times for them and played a key role in the Sky Blues' recent dominance, picking up 4 titles or 4 winners' medals in his 5 seasons in the first team, and he even played 16 times in the UEFA Champions League. So obviously Palace are nowhere near Champions League football, but the fact that he's got that experience is great, high level football, and the fact that he's won 4 league titles as well is actually quite impressive as well. Obviously Palace are not going to win the league, but it's all about experience. And obviously Roy Hodgson, he's worked in the Swedish league, so obviously he sees that actually there's a bit of experience here. Now obviously I've said he's Swedish, and he obviously plays for the Swedish national team, but also he's got Macedonian, Turkish and Albanian origins, so he's quite a lot of mixture, and obviously he's chosen to play for Sweden. And in terms of the Swedish team, he's obviously had 11 caps for them, or for their under-21 side, and he scored once in that time. And obviously he helped his nation to a 3rd place finish in the FIFA Under-17s World Cup in 2013. So like I've said, just talking about his experience, the experience he's got, once again playing at a World Cup, albeit the Under-17s, he's still got quite good experience there. But like I've said already, do comment below what you think about him, whether you think he's a good signing, and whether you, like I've said already, whether you do think he'll be a hit in the Premier League. So hello to all of you watching on the stream. Do comment below in the YouTube comments what you think about this signing, whether you do think Rakip will be a hit in the Premier League, whether you do think he's a good addition to our squad, albeit he's not going to be a first team player, he's probably just there to fill up the bench, but hopefully we can see what quality he brings to the side over the next few weeks. So do comment below with your views. So apparently the sound has gone again. Hopefully it shouldn't have gone. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to give you the interview, obviously Erdal Rakip's first interview as a Palace player Obviously, it is in Swedish, but if you look at the bottom, there'll be subtitles, so obviously you can understand what he's saying from that.
Erdal, welcome to Crystal Palace Football Club. How excited are you about playing in the Premier League?
Ja, det kommer bli fantastiskt kul att komma till, som sagt, världens bästa liga, Premier League, och jag har längtat efter detta.
It must have been a whirlwind couple of weeks, first arriving in Portugal with Benfica and now coming to England.
Känns bra. Jag kom till Crystal Palace till slut och känns som det är rätt steg här också. Det är fantastisk liga och fantastiskt lag också, så det är för min utveckling och försöka hjälpa till här till laget.
We know that you're a midfielder, but what kind of player are you?
Jag är en spelare som kan spela som nummer 6, balanserad, och en box-till-box-spelare som springer upp och ner hela tiden.
The Swedish season ended in November. How far away are you from being match fit?
Ja, det var ett tag sedan jag spelade match, men som sagt, jag har tränat en del och hållit igång mycket med boll, så känner mig fit så jag kan vara igång direkt.
Roy Hodgson was a hero for Malmo, winning 5 league titles. How much of an honour will it be to play for him?
Det kommer vara nära att få jobba med honom. Som sagt, han var ett tag i Malmö och vann sina 5 titlar där i Malmö. Och det är en legendar i Malmö, stor. Alla vet vem det är i Malmö, så det kommer bli kul för att jobba med honom.
Many Swedish players have been a success here in the Premier League. Are you confident you can adapt quickly to a different league?
Ja, det tror jag. Det känns som den här ligan passar mig, och det går snabbt, fort spel och tuffa tacklingar, så jag tror det passar bra till mig.
How was your experience playing in the Champions League for Malmo?
Ja, det var 2-3 år sedan vi spelade Champions League, men det var, alltså, man lär sig så mycket där också. Det är en bra motståndare, och det var kul för att spela där.
The most famous Swedish footballer playing in the Premier League at the moment, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. You're from the same area as him, aren't you? Is he someone you always looked up to?
Ja, det har varit min favoritspelare som jag har varit sedan jag var liten, och det är klart, om man kommer upp från samma område så har man haft koll på honom jättelänge och kollat på honom hela karriären.
What do you know about Crystal Palace?
Fantastisk klubb, som sagt, och brukar klara sig kvar hela tiden i Premier League och gör det bra här i Premier League. Spelar fin fotboll, och det är kul att komma hit till slut.
And finally, what role do you expect to play for the team here this season, and what do you hope to learn?
Jag hoppas nu här i början kanske komma in sakta och få hjälpa till laget så mycket som möjligt och visa mina egenskaper som jag har, och ja, sen så jobba med Roy också, så kommer det bli kul.
So that was Erdal Rakip's first interview as a Palace player. Obviously, like I've said already, if you're still watching, do comment below with your views of his signing. Obviously, he's on a loan deal from Benfica, so do comment below what you think. So what I might do now is go on YouTube, just try and see if I can find a video, sort of a compilation of all of his goals and his highlights, and obviously show that to you on the stream, just to give you an idea of what he's like as a player, so sort of his playing style, and obviously that can we can look at that and see if he will fit in at Palace. So let me just see if I can find anything on YouTube. I'm sure there's a few compilation videos, so obviously if I can find any, I will show them to you. But in the meantime, do comment below. Any news on Erdal? If that's talking about Erdal from Inter Milan, apparently we're in talks to sign him, a £10 million deal. I don't really know what to think of that, really. I don't know, because he's 31 years old. He hasn't scored that many goals this season. He's had injury problems, so I'm not really sure whether that be a good signing or not. But if you think so, do comment that below as well. So if you are still watching as well, the Swansea game just finished 1-0 to Swansea against Liverpool. So obviously a big win for Swansea. Not obviously ideal for Palace because it means they're now closer to us, but nevertheless a good win for Swansea. So there's hope for all of our other teams, all of us, to beat Liverpool in the upcoming weeks. So comment here, obviously about the Liverpool Swansea game, or the Swansea Liverpool game. Obviously saying that he's very surprised that Liverpool played awful against Swansea. It was quite surprising. I was watching the game, and actually Swansea were putting up quite a good fight. So obviously their change in manager seems to be working so far. But in terms of us being relegation rivals, we just want them to stay below us. Obviously, because it's not ideal with them being just below us now. So hopefully we can carry on getting results like Swansea did there to obviously propel us up the table. And when you look at the table, I believe it's only 5 wins now for Palace to stay up. So realistically, we've got quite a lot of games left. So hopefully we should be able to do that quite easily. But I've just found a video here with some of his career highlights. So we're going to just watch them now. So there was just some highlights of Erdal Rakip's career so far. Obviously he's never played in the Premier League before, and he's obviously played in the Swedish league, which is obviously a slightly lower level. But because he's played at Champions League, he's got some experience. And actually, some of the goals there, yes, you may argue that actually the defending and the goalkeeping qualities weren't so good. They weren't necessarily that fantastic. But the fact that he was able to score one of them goals in particular, which was a fantastic dink, he's got some quality there. And he reminds me quite a lot of, he'll probably play in a sort of number 10 role, in behind the striker, or whatever formation we play, he'll probably play in the midfield, in behind the striker. And actually, judging by what I've seen there, some of his shots, some of his passing ability, and the fact that he's able to just to pick up the ball and create something out of nothing, it actually looks quite promising. So do comment below with your opinions on the signing. Obviously, earth-changing has said, get this YouTube channel out there. It's very good. I appreciate the support. So if you yourself do want to put it out there, then do feel free to do so. Obviously, he's also commented below saying Crystal Palace supporters, Red and Blue Army, true Crystal Palace fans, football fans. So yeah, I do appreciate the support. So if you do want to share it around, then do feel free to do so. Now, of course, I did have a question earlier on about other transfers. So just to go through, you know, sort of a Sky Sports News type thing in terms of transfers that might be coming in, might not be coming in. I've just sort of designed this little thing here. Obviously, the signing that came in today, Erdal Rakip, obviously came in today on a loan from Benfica, so we know that already. In terms of outs, there's only been one player leave Palace so far, and that is Keshi Anderson going to Swindon Town. Obviously, he was on loan there until January, and they made that loan permanent. Obviously, that was for an undisclosed fee, so it's probably around, I don't know, it's rumoured to be about £300,000. I don't know exactly how much it is, but it's not necessarily a massive amount of money in terms of transfers for Palace. And in terms of, you know, incomings, obviously I've talked already a bit about the Polish centre-back, Jarosław Żak, I believe that's how you say it. Obviously, he's close to completing a deal. He was meant to have his medical the other day. He was meant to sign today. Obviously, Roy Hodgson announced it after the Arsenal game. So obviously, basically his announcement is imminent unless there's any sort of minor, you know, implications with the deal. In terms of another player we're looking at another Swedish player, but this is the goalkeeper, Robin Olsen. He obviously looks quite good. I believe he helped knock Italy out of the World Cup in terms of the qualifiers, so stopping Italy going to the World Cup. So the fact that he's got that bit of quality there on the international level, it's quite good. I believe he's 28, maybe 29 years old, so obviously a player who could obviously stay at Palace for a few seasons and isn't necessarily too old. And, you know, the final player really there's been major links with is Kumar Barbikar. Obviously, the last few weeks, there's been quite a lot of rumours surrounding him, around a £15 million deal from Fiorentina, but it's now rumoured that Everton are now involved, and actually the fact that he's been linked with a move to the Premier League suggests that they're actually trying to get a new contract for him. So whatever it is, I personally, judging by what I've seen on YouTube, the fact that he's 24 years old and he's a striker, which we definitely need, a position we need, you know, Kumar Barbikar could be certainly someone who I personally would be happy with, and actually I think could still do a job for the club. So do comment below whether you think any of them three latest signings would be any good, and also comment below whether you do think that Keshi Anderson, if given a chance, maybe he could have had some influence on the team. But personally for me, out of these sort of rumoured signings, I think for me we've got to get a new goalkeeper in. So Robin Olsen, obviously he's got the same agent incidentally as Rakip, so obviously there'd be a connection there, but I think that he's a good quality international goalkeeper who's still relatively young. In terms of the Polish centre back, obviously that's almost complete now, so in the next few days he'll sign up, and I think that he's actually got quite a lot of quality in terms of what he can bring to the side. So hopefully, you know, with him coming to the Premier League, he can cope with that physicality and that change. And judging by what people have said about him, you know, Polish football fans, they've said he's probably arguably one of the best defenders in the Polish league. He's very physical, likes to, you know, win aerial duels. So actually that's something that Palace do need. So actually, obviously he's never played in the Premier League before, but he looks like someone who's got the quality in terms of being a very strong central defender. So do comment below what you think about these new signings, and whether you do think that some of them will be announced, you know, today or tomorrow, or whether you do think, much like what Palace do every season, whether we'll leave it to the last minute as usual. And in terms of a striker, another striker we're linked with is Moussa Dembele from Celtic. And personally for me, I think there's a real possibility that we might sign him, but I think if we do sign him, it will be on deadline day and will be for quite a lot of money. So much like Mamadou Sakho in the summer, where it was a marquee signing, a lot of money on deadline day, I think that if we do sign a striker, whether it be Moussa Dembele or whether it be Kumar Barbikar, I think it will be for a lot of money and will be towards the end of the window. So, like I said there, do comment below with your views of these new signings, and do put any suggestions of other signings you think that Palace should go forth and make. And do comment below whether you think we should always get them done early rather than leaving it to the last minute. But, you know, do comment below your views on that. So Danny Boy's commented short on loan. I totally agree. You know, I've seen a few people suggest that on Twitter. I personally think the fact that Dortmund are willing to pay half of his loan fee, yep, it would totally be amazing. Yeah, I totally agree. The fact that, you know, they have already said that they'll pay half of his loan fee, I think that would be a relatively cheap deal for Palace. And like what I said with Erdal Rakip, I think that actually, in terms of bringing some, you know, some extra bodies into that midfield, bringing him in from Dortmund would actually be really good, because not only would it give us a bit of cover in that sort of attacking midfield role, but also just give us a little bit more creativity, because I know he's been known for his creativity at Dortmund. So much like what Danny said there, I think he would be an amazing signing. Obviously, do comment below any other suggestions. You know, any goalkeepers you think that Palace should sign. Realistically, Guaita was linked a few weeks ago. Probably not going to happen now. Obviously, I've already said about Roy Hodgson. He was obviously linked here. So do comment below any other players you think that Palace should go forth and sign. So Earth Changing has just commented he's at a good age at 27 years old. I totally agree. I think that in terms of getting him on loan with a look to get it permanent, I think that 27 is a good age. It's at most players' peak, so I don't see a problem with his age. I think it's a good age, like I've said, at his peak. And I personally do think that, like I've said already, the quality he's got, certainly with the injuries we've got at the minute, he would certainly bring something to our attacking midfield play. So do comment below any other suggestions. So what I'm going to do now, just give you a few photos that they've put on the club website of obviously Rakip's first day at Palace. So just to go through them here, obviously the one with the sponsor background is normally the one that, you know, all clubs do, and I think unlike Manchester United announcing Alexis Sanchez, we didn't do anything elaborate. We just post a picture, which I'm absolutely fine with. You know, I'd rather them spend time getting the deals done rather than making these fancy videos. Obviously a few more here. Obviously at the training ground today, in the boot room, obviously with a few boots there. There's just a few more here. Obviously, once again in the boot room, a few shots. Obviously in the gym doing his medical there. Obviously once again another picture there doing a medical. Obviously on the treadmill, you know, your usual thing you see. Obviously once again on the treadmill there, doing some balancing drills. Once again, another one on the bike there. And that's all the photos. So that just gives you an idea, obviously, what his first day at Palace was like, and obviously what a player would normally do on their first day at a club. So just to go back and look at some of the suggestions you guys have put in the comments. So I believe someone said Daniel Sturridge. Yeah, Daniel Sturridge I think would be a good signing as well. Yep, Daniel Sturridge is an idea. Yeah, I think he'd be a really good addition to Palace. You know, he may not necessarily be the best player because of his injury record, but I think he could still do a job for Palace. And, you know, he's still relatively young in terms of his peak, so I think he could still do a job for us, whether that be on a permanent or a loan basis. Got another comment here about Amadou, yep, from Lille. That's gone extremely quiet. And much like the Moussa Dembele deal, I think that it will be a last minute deal. So if we do end up signing Amadou, I think that actually it will be a last minute deal, and it would either be a loan with a obligation to buy him at the end of the season, or it will be us paying, you know, relatively, it's looking like 20 million, so we'll pay 20 million euros to get him in. And based on the stats, you know, you get on whoscored.com, his stats look good, and obviously, you know what he's been doing in terms of defensively for Lille has been quite good as well. Squad number for Rakip. I've in a group chat earlier, I was talking with a few Palace friends of mine. They haven't yet announced a squad number, so we're obviously going to have to wait and see for that. But if he is going to play against West Ham, or at least be on the bench, obviously they'll have to announce one there. Obviously some of the free numbers, I believe, yeah, so I think any number, there's obviously 1 to 14 I think is full up, so any number above 15 other than the ones that are taken, I think he could take. So he could take any number above that. But it is quite weird. They normally do announce the squad number on the day of the signing, but obviously in this case they haven't. So maybe it's just a case of before the game on Tuesday night against West Ham, maybe they just announce it then, with our other few signings if we do get any, or whether they just, they'll announce it tomorrow if they announce the Polish defender signing. So really, answer to that question, there is no squad number, but do comment below what number you think you should take. Personally for me, because Jordan Much is looking like he's going to leave because he's got no future at Palace, why not give him the number 22? So, I don't see a problem with that. So do comment below with a number you think that he should get. Another question here from Danny Boy. Any news on Ruben Loftus-Cheek cutting his loan short? As far as I know, because Ruben Loftus-Cheek has played the amount of games that was required in his contract with the Palace loan in terms of not going back to Chelsea, I think they can't take him back unless obviously they come to an agreement where Chelsea have to pay. I think they have to pay to get the player back. But based on what I've heard, Roy Hodgson has already said that he wants him to stay at the club, and I think that because obviously he's met that agreement in terms of making that many appearances to stay at the club, I think we'll probably see him stay for the rest of the season. And his injuries, until he has if they decide to take the operation, then he'll be out for a few months. If they do not have if he doesn't have an operation, he could be back within a few weeks. So it just depends really if he'll play this season again. It's purely based on whether he's having that operation or not. Like I've said, if he has it, he'll probably be out for the rest of the season and will probably only play the last sort of 2 or 3 games. Or if he does just go through the normal rehab without an operation, then of course, he'll end up, only missing a few more weeks. And ultimately with, Erdal Rakip coming in, hopefully he'll bring a bit of cover, so we won't be necessarily missing too much quality on the side. But still, Loftus-Cheek is a big loss for Palace. So do comment below whether you do think Loftus-Cheek will go back. Earth Changing has put, I feel that Cheek will be sold to Palace. Admittedly, if he does get over his injury troubles, I think the fact that he's now getting injuries, he's had 2 or 3 injuries this season, the fact that he's now starting to get injuries quite a lot, it will probably bunk his price down. And the fact that he's, the quality we've seen from him this season, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't go in and sell him or go in and buy him. And I personally think the fact that Chelsea have brought in Ross Barkley obviously gives Loftus-Cheek even less chance to get in the Chelsea side. So for me personally, I think we have a really great chance of buying him so long as he doesn't get injured, and obviously Chelsea don't want him. And I personally think based on Barkley being valued at about £50 million, I think Loftus-Cheek, the fact that he hasn't played much first team football, obviously other than that Palace, I think he'd probably be valued at about £20 million. But much like Sacco last season, I think that Loftus-Cheek has been a fantastic signing. Yes, he's been injured, but he's been a fantastic signing, and I personally think that he'll be a great buy for us come the summer. Obviously, I've got another question here. Any news on Sacco's comeback? As far as I know, based on what Roy Hodgson has said and based on what the club have released, it should be sometime in February. Obviously, we've seen, training ground videos and photos of Sacco working quite hard in the gym, and it looks like he's quite close to returning, but maybe just needs a bit of match fitness, a bit of match sharpness. So it'd probably be back, probably beginning of February, end of February. And I'm looking at the fixture list now. The fixtures we've got in February, we've got Newcastle at home, Everton away, Tottenham at home. So if he does come back at the start of February, it'll be quite an important period because we've got obviously 2 games there which are quite crucial in terms of teams in and around us, and then we've got the big one against Tottenham, who obviously got held to a 1-1 against Southampton, so that gives us a bit of hope. So really for me, I'm really hoping that Sacco comes back in the next few weeks because we really could do with his quality in the upcoming games. If you are watching the stream, don't forget to subscribe as well. We're going to try and hit that 700 mark in the next few days. Obviously, that'd be a great, milestone to hit. So if you are watching and you haven't subscribed already, then do subscribe and hit that button. And if you've got any more questions, then do feel free to comment them as well. Got another question in from Danny Boy, the latest on Jack. As far as I know, the Polish defender, I believe that's the guy you're referring to. Basically, it was announced yesterday by the Croydon Advertiser that Roy Hodgson he basically said that both these players, so both Rakip and Jack, were very close to joining the club, and they were going to be announced tomorrow, which was today, obviously. Rakip's obviously been announced today, so hopefully Jaroslav Jack, I think you're going to say his name is. I think that he should be announced within the next few days, really, because realistically, the fact that he's had his medical, the fee's been agreed, and the fact that Roy Hodgson said it'd be announced today and it hasn't been, so hopefully it'll be announced tomorrow. And judging by the fact that Rakip's one was announced at about 1 o'clock, I think that we can probably expect an announcement tomorrow at roughly the same time. So I've got another question here. How long is Roy Hodgson's contract with Palace? So let me just research this. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I believe it was a 3.5-year contract, but I'm just gonna a 2.5-year contract. I'm just gonna check what it is. Obviously, personally for me, at the beginning of the season, I thought it'd be a short-term thing. Keep us in the league, and then he'll go on to retire. But the fact that he's doing such a great job at the minute, I think that probably he can stay on at Palace for maybe 2, maybe even 3 seasons, and then obviously retire, hopefully on a high, and end his career, like I said, on a high. And when you consider he used to be a Palace fan, used to play for Palace, it'd be quite nice for him to end his career on a high at the club he supported his whole life. So just looking at Wikipedia now, just looking at the length of his contract, just scrolling down now. So he signed a 2-year contract, obviously, so pretty close to what I said. Obviously, I said a 2.5-year one. I think because it was so close to the beginning of the season, only 4 games played when he replaced Frank de Boer, I think that 2-year contract I think is fair. And I think that in these 2 years, obviously he's got this season, it's halfway through now. Hopefully next season, with him doing an overhaul, or a complete overhaul of the squad, hopefully some better things, are to come. Because what we've seen so far is great quality from him. So hopefully we're being able to give him the ability to get transfers in and things like that. Hopefully better things are to come. So another question here from Danny Boy. Any news on Patrick Van Aanholt to Everton? As far as I know, because of the injury to Jeffrey Slupp, Palace won't be signing Van Aanholt as much as Sam Allardyce would love to get him back. So personally for me, I think that recently Van Aanholt's done a fantastic job in terms of his defensive duties, and against Arsenal, yes, we were diabolical, but PVA was one of the better players. Obviously, yes, most of the attacks came down the opposite flank, but I still thought Van Aanholt done a really great job, and I think that actually he could be one of an important player for us coming up, not only because of his defensive work, because although people like to criticise him, he is pretty good defensively, but also because he obviously brings us that little bit more in attack. So do comment below your views on Patrick Van Aanholt. So we've got another question here. When does the building work start on the new stadium? So obviously I don't know everything about the new stadium, but as far as I'm aware, the planning permission went in on Thursday. So obviously that starts, that starts the process in terms of the council looking at it and looking at the plans. And when they did announce it, they said that the planning permission would go in January. It has. So we're at stage 1. That's happened. And they said if all goes to plan, the building works could start at the end of this season. So really, I think that actually, given the fact that the planning permission has gone in quite early, because they said the end of January, it went in mid-January, so hopefully the fact that that's ahead of schedule, if it all goes to plan, we could end up, starting building a new stadium as early as the end of this season. That's a good point that Earth Changing just said. PVA did come out on Twitter and said he wasn't going to leave Palace because someone tagged him on a tweet and they basically said to him, please don't leave Palace. I know that a few clubs are linked with you. And obviously he replied to that on his official account, basically saying, I'm happy at Palace, I'm going to stay here, so no need to worry. So that's a really good point. I totally forgot to talk about that, but yep, that's a fair point. Obviously, PVA has actually come out himself and said that he's not going to leave, which I personally think is a good thing, because like I've said already, I think that as much as he gets criticism, I think he's actually a pretty decent player. Who do I think is Palace's best player? That's an interesting question. Personally, for me, if I'm looking at the season as a whole, I'm probably going to have to say Wilfried Zaha, purely because of the class, just the crazy skill, the pace he has. But if I'm looking in the last sort of 3 or 4 games, maybe even 5, 6 you could look at, if you're looking at that period, personally for me, I think it's got to be Luka Milivojevic. You know, playing in that defensive midfield role, he's been absolutely solid, and for me, he's one of our contenders for the player of the season. And alongside, obviously, Zaha, as I've already said, I think that James Tompkins could be, you know, up there as well as one of our best players this season. So we've got another question here. How many players aside then Jack and Rakip do I think we need? So obviously, Jack is the centre-back and Rakip is that attacking midfielder we signed today. Personally, for me, we've got to sign a striker. That's a priority. And if we don't sign one striker, if we sign one striker, it's got to be 2. So if we've got the funds, we should sign 2 strikers. So realistically, we're going to sign a centre-back. We've signed a central midfielder. We're hopefully going to sign a striker. So hopefully, for me, I think we need basically 2 more signings, realistically. And if we do have the funds and if the players are available, like Roy Hodgson said, I think we need 2 other players as well to add on to that. So really, realistically, we're looking at 6 players to join Palace in the window. And obviously, at the moment, we've only got 1. So Mike has just commented, I haven't done really any research into our new signing. What do I think about him? Obviously, for me, I also don't know much about him, but based on videos I've seen, he's obviously a pretty good centre attacking midfielder. Obviously, he's relatively young as well, 21 years old, so he's got that sort of hunger to go and perform. And actually, he's played, I think it was about 11 times in the Champions League. So obviously, Palace not going to get Champions League football, but he's got experience up there in terms of playing at the highest level. So I did, if you go back on the live stream, if you just rewind, I did actually play a video that I found on YouTube with some of his highlights. So if you want to go back and look at that, then do feel free to do so. South London has said, should Tompkins get an England call-up? Personally, for me, based on form, yes, but that's my biased opinion. But I think that recently he's been playing fantastically well in terms of not only defensively, but in terms of scoring a goal. Obviously, he scored against Arsenal. And that's the thing with him. Obviously, he's good defensively, but also he's got that leadership. And that's something we'd been missing at the beginning of the season. But now Tompkins has come back next to Kelly, good partnership. And the fact that now he's got a sustained period without injury, hopefully now he can develop more. And in terms of an England call-up, I personally think if people like Chris Smalling can get in the England lineup, then I don't see why James Tompkins shouldn't go in there. Because obviously Chris Smalling, as an example, Phil Jagielka, these are players who have always been in the England squad, but really they shouldn't be in the England squad because based on form, they haven't really been playing that well. But personally for me, I think that he should deserve that. Should Lee Chun-Yong get a chance? Basically, since he made that horrible back pass against Burnley, I don't really want him anywhere near the first team. You know, he played a few games after that. He played in the Cup, I believe, against Huddersfield. And to be honest, on his day, he can be a good player. He can hold up the ball pretty well. But I don't think he's up to Premier League standards. So alongside Jordan Much, I think that Lee Chun-Yong should be 2 of the players we're looking to offload, whether that be on loan or whether it be a permanent deal. I think they should be looking to get new clubs. So in terms of Rakip's loan, I don't think there's a release. There's a clause like to buy him back if it ends well at the end of the season. So really, I can't really comment on that. Obviously, it'd be great because if he performs well and Benfica don't want him, then I don't see why we couldn't sign him. And I personally think I'm really hoping that he is a success because really, you know, a Premier League club against Benfica, it's more likely that the Premier League club are going to get the good deal. So Earth Changing has put, what are the thoughts about the keepers? Personally for me, I think that Wayne Hennessy on his day can be a good goalkeeper. You know, his sort of decision making may not be fantastic, but because he's so big, because he's so tall, he can pull out fantastic saves here and there. And you know, you don't get to be, obviously Wales are not the best footballing team, but the fact that Wales are up there as an international team, he's got to be some sort of good keeper. The fact that he's in an international team, so I think that Hennessy on his day he can be good, but he's one of these players who's very inconsistent. You know, he could have good games in a row and then go on 10 games where he's absolutely terrible. So really for Hennessy, it's all about consistency, because on his day he could be good, but it's all about, you know, getting that sort of consistency back into his game. Danny Boy's commented, do I think there's any chance of Timothy Fosu-Mensah going permanent? Personally for me, I think that Man United, obviously they like to bring in a lot of players, spend a lot of money in the summer. I personally think there is a chance that he could stay. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't want to. And personally for me, Tim Fosu-Mensah, you know, obviously against Arsenal he didn't have the best game, but before that, against Burnley he was absolutely fantastic, against Man City. So personally for me, if the opportunity arose, I don't see any reason why we couldn't sign Fosu-Mensah for, say, £15 million. Obviously the question below, thoughts on Kaikai's move to Charlton. Personally for me, I think it's quite unlucky for Kaikai, the fact that he hasn't really been given a chance. You know, he plays a few times in the Cup and he comes off the bench in the Premier League a few times this season, but I think it's really unlucky because I think he's a player with loads of quality but hasn't been given a chance. And I think now, because I think he's 22, I think he's now coming to the stage where he's either going to have to make it at Palace and actually start getting games, or he's obviously going to have to be sold, and we're giving him sort of one more chance by sending him on loan to Charlton. Obviously Charlton, they're our rivals, but the fact that he done really well in the Championship, by sending him down to Charlton, hopefully that just gives him a little bit more experience. But for me, if this loan deal doesn't go really well, I think that he could be one of the first players out of the door in the summer. So another question here, thoughts on Sakho and Townsend? For me, I think Sakho is a really good physical presence and is a different player to Townsend. You know, Townsend's all about the pace, the cut-ins and long shots, whereas Sakho's a more physical player. And obviously Townsend is more of an out-and-out winger, whereas Sakho is more of a player who can cut inside and, you know, can make things happen. So personally for me, Sakho's a more physical, more powerful player, whereas Townsend, so Sakho's the powerful one, and Townsend is someone who will cut inside and has a little bit more skill and pace. Do I rate Parish as our chairman? You know, this guy, Steve Parish, has come up for a lot of criticism, but I do rate him as our chairman. You know, yes, everybody makes mistakes, but I think the majority of the time, Steve Parish does make quite good decisions. So really for me, I don't see any problem with him as our chairman. Who's our best player apart from Zaha? I think I got a similar question a few minutes ago. But for me, at the moment, based on form, it's Luka Milivojevic, closely followed up by James Tompkins. So both of these players have been fantastic. You know, in terms of James Tompkins, he's been absolutely solid at the back, a great leader to the side. And Luka Milivojevic playing in that central defensive midfield role, now being given the captaincy. I think he not only commands the side well, but in terms of his defensive presence, I think he's fantastic there as well. Should Nye Kirby be in the matchday squad? Personally for me, I think he should do. I think that Nye Kirby is a great talent for England. Obviously he played in the under-17s World Cup, and I personally think if you're going to give the likes of Likio and Wan-Bissaka a go on the bench, I don't see why Nye Kirby shouldn't be on the bench at least. And personally for me, obviously we didn't get a cup run, but if we do get any games in the cup, let's say next season, I personally don't think if we get a lower league position, why someone like Nye Kirby could go forth and, you know, play in the game there. Should Luka be the captain permanently? Short answer, yes. Obviously with the injuries to Scott Van and Jason Punchin, obviously we've got the likes of Cabaye and Tompkins who realistically could be captains. But for me, because of how well Luka's been doing recently and the fact that he's obviously the first name on the team sheet, I think for me it's a no-brainer in terms of him being the captain permanently. Opinion on the new stadium. I think the new stadium looks quite good. If I can just look up a few images of it now, and better again. Apologies, I don't know what happened there. My stream just cut out. But as I was saying, obviously in terms of the new stadium, I think it's a really great thing. Obviously not only because it's going to improve the ground overall, but I think that it's obviously, it's going to be good for the football club. The stand that's there at the minute is really tired, really old. So hopefully by building something new, obviously it will help to, bring us up to a Premier League standard. Because at the minute, as much as we don't want to say it, the stadium at the minute isn't really at a Premier League standard. So in terms of a picture of the stand, there's the new stand there, the new main stand. As I believe it's inside, it's 2 to 3 tiers high, and in terms of in behind, it's a 5-tier stand with 5 floors, with obviously all the corporate stuff at the bottom, with all the sort of terracing and concourses above it there. But personally for me, I really like the design here, obviously with the arch in the middle that represents the Crystal Palace, with obviously the eagle in the middle, and obviously the 2 wings going out either side, which obviously represent the mascot, the eagle. So personally for me, I think it's the future is looking bright for Sellers Park, and obviously hopefully the redevelopment all goes well. And like I've said, if it all goes well, they should start building it at the end of this season. How many players are out of contract in the summer? I'm not sure of a number exactly, but I think there's quite a few players out of contract. Likes of MacArthur, Kabai, loads of youth players as well. I think Kai is as well. Lee Chung Yong, Martin Kelly as well is out of contract. Wayne Hennessy, Julian Speroni. So there's quite a lot of players out of contract. And for me, I think that, maybe some of them like Hennessy might go on a free transfer. But for me personally, the likes of MacArthur and Kabai, I think that they definitely deserve new contracts and will probably get them. And in terms of the latest on their contracts, as far as I know, as far as what I've read in the paper, MacArthur and Kabai are in negotiations for a new contract. Whether they accept that is another question, but I think at the moment the club's priority, before they go and talk about transfers, or before they go and talk about contract extensions, it's all about the transfers we're going to bring in. My thoughts on Freddie Ladapo. For me, he was a good prospect in non-league, but obviously we've seen him against Man United now. We've seen him against Bristol City in that diabolical game there. And personally for me, I don't actually think that he's got that much quality. For me, I think that he probably could do a job for maybe a League One side, maybe a Championship side. But for me, I don't think he's really got that quality to be in the Premier League. Yes, he's relatively young, 23 years old, but I think that for me, he's one of the players out of contract in the summer, so I don't think he's really going to stay at Palace any longer. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Obviously, I'm trying to hit that 700 milestone, so if you would, I would appreciate it if you subscribe, and also if you do share my, share the channel with your friends. Thoughts on the academy? I think the academy is looking pretty good. If you look back at the game the other week in the FA Cup, Youth Cup, a pretty good game there. Unlucky to lose against Newcastle, and the fact that we obviously took the lead in the game. We came from behind again. The fact that we've got that quality to score them goals was great to see. And in terms of a player that was mentioned earlier, Nia Kirby is one to watch for the future because he looked quite good recently. Palace's worst signing since promotion. It's quite a difficult one. There's been quite a lot, the likes of Adebayor, Steve Mandanda, Jordan Much. So there's all of these players here. Jose Campagna, I think that's how you say it, when we first got promoted. It's really difficult really to pick one player in particular because the likes of Mandanda, yes, they were not fantastic signings because they didn't do much wrong, but actually the few games that Mandanda did play, he's done alright in. But I don't know, do comment below with your worst signing. But for me, it's a pretty hard decision to make. Let's just say Jose Campagna, purely because he had lots of potential, but nothing really happened for him at Palace. Would I be against renaming Selhurst? For me personally, obviously you see other grounds being given names in terms of sponsorships, but you still call it Selhurst Park. And for me, if we, to cover the cost of the stadium, if we have to call it, let's say, some betting company, if we have to do that for a few seasons to get a bit of money from sponsorship, I don't see any problem with that, because for me, obviously 100 million is quite a lot of money to spend on a stadium. So hopefully by bringing in a sponsor, maybe on a 5-year deal, hopefully that will help cover the cost there. For you, Jordan, much is the worst signing since since promotion? Personally for me, yeah, I could agree with that. But yeah, I think there was quite a lot of hype when he first signed, but we've now seen actually he isn't really that quality of a player. So what I'm going to do now, obviously, it's getting quite late now, so I'm just going to cut the stream here. But I do appreciate all of you guys sending in your questions and, of course, speaking to me tonight. But like I've said already, do subscribe so you can keep up to date with all the latest stuff on my channel. I have my podcast that just came out earlier today. I have the press conferences and also match previews. So if you do want to subscribe, please feel free to do so, and also share the channel with your friends. But like I've said already, thanks for watching and good night.